The Giants have kicker problems again. Welcome back to the Everything New York Giants podcast with New York Giants fangirl. My name's Adrianna. I'm your host. Today's episode going to preview the upcoming game against the Commanders on Sunday and then also talk about college quarterbacks because I know that is top of everyone's mind right now, especially with the Jets actually winning on Thursday Night Football. So if the Giants keep losing, that's going to put them one step closer to getting a quarterback. So let's talk about the upcoming game against the Commanders and the kicker situation, because I don't know what it is against Washington, but for the second time this season, we have a kicker problem. So the injury report just came out, and out of nowhere, kicker Greg Joseph has been added to the report with an abdomen issue. But not only that, he's ruled out for the game. So that means, because Graham Gano, God knows when he's coming off IR, but it's not this week. So the Giants are likely going to elevate. To me, it makes the only sense at this point because they don't have any other kickers on the roster. They're going to elevate Jude McAdamy, I think is how you pronounce it. He is one of the international players, and he is on the practice squad. So he's going to be our kicker on Sunday. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's just typical Giants, right? Like, of course, they have someone who hasn't been on the injury report and who's actually in the last couple games done a nice job of field goals and making extra point attempts. And now he's out. So I hope Jude can get the job done. It's, going to be a Sunday 1:00 game. It's supposed to be actually very nice. It's not supposed to be cold, windy, rainy, anything like that. So hopefully he has that in his favor. Although, as we have seen in multiple games at MetLife, even last night on Thursday Night Football, the Texans kicker missed 2 kicks. So you just never know what's going to happen. I just hope that, Jude, having practiced in the area, is going to be okay. And I also hope that maybe we can score touchdowns at home, but that's another story. So let's keep going with the injury report because, believe it or not, there is good news outside of this. So Jay McGillen is the only other player listed as out. Again, we still have Graham Gano and Gunnar Olszewski on IR. I have no idea when they're going to be back. I thought it was only going to be 4 weeks, but we're in week 8 and that's not the case. So TBD on that one. Week 9, excuse me. We're in week 9. Oh my God, time flies. The only player that's listed as doubtful is wide receiver Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who is dealing with an Achilles injury. He barely practiced this week, so he's probably not going to play. And lastly, the only player that's listed as questionable is inside linebacker Ty Summers, who's dealing with an injury. An ankle injury. So I think that's, I guess, the plus side here because the injury report this week has been extremely lengthy with a lot of players listed as limited throughout the week. So the good news is they are all cleared. The best news out of all of this is that rookie running back Tyrone Tracy Jr. is off the concussion protocol. He is not listed as questionable. He's off the injury report. He's good to go, ready to play, which is huge news because if the Giants want to win this game, they have to be able to run the ball. So I hope that that is going to be one thing that Dable does take advantage of and actually work into the game plan this week like he did last week. So actually a great Tyrone Tracy stat here is that he has finished with over 100 yards in 3 out of the last 4 games, including 2 outings with an average yards per carry over 7. That's amazing. So I know we all obviously have been really excited about Tyrone Tracy. And when you break it down like that, I think it says a lot about him. And what it says to me too is that even though we've had all these issues with the offensive line, the fact that 3 out of the 4 of the last games, especially one of them being Pittsburgh, who is significantly better than teams like the Bengals and some of the other teams that the Giants have played. So I am excited. I'm excited about him. I know as Giants fans, we all are, and I'm excited to see more of him. And, Washington's run defense is not great. So again, I hope that Dable is going to take advantage of this. I heard a very interesting theory, and, there's been a lot of talk about tanking. This is a quick little sidebar. A lot of talk about tanking and what's going on with the coaches and things like that. And on our Giants Collective the other night, we were talking about this, me, Bad Dog, and the Entertainer. And I think it was Bad Dog who was like, well, what if the theory is that the reason why Dable is not revolving game plans that are heavy on the run game going going against teams that are bad against the run is because he's actually tanking. And I think it's an interesting theory. I don't think it's the case because I think ultimately at this point, no matter what John Mara says, Dable is fighting for his job. The players are fighting for their jobs. They're playing for new contracts. They're, fighting for the coaches are fighting for their jobs. So I think at this point, like everyone is fighting for something. Also, no one wants to keep losing, especially Dexter Lawrence. So I just thought it was an interesting theory, though. I chalk it up to just Dable being stubborn as hell and needing some help with his game plans. So anyway, the hope is that they continue to run the ball this weekend. So I'm curious to see, what their passing attack is going to be. Obviously, Malik Neighbors being healthy and ready to go. I expect to see him get the bulk of the targets. Especially going against a defense like the Commanders, I think he's really going to have an opportunity to shine. He did well the first time that we played Washington. Obviously, he dropped what would have been the fourth down conversion. He's had some drops. I understand that fans are frustrated by it. I am also frustrated by it. But I think we have to remember that at the end of the day, number one, this kid is a rookie. And number two, I saw a really great stat from Dan Duggan. And he was like, guys like Paka Nakua, Justin Jefferson, like these guys who are number one receivers for their team, they get significantly more targets than anyone else, which means that they're also going to have a higher drops percentage. So I think that's a good way to kind of just put things into perspective. Obviously, I want Malik Neighbors to catch the ball more, especially when Daniel Jones actually gives him a good ball, which we all know is not all of the time. So when he gives him a good ball that's in the chest, I already talked about this, you got to catch it. So it's something I really want to see from him this week. And of course, what I want to see out of Daniel is accurate passes. But that happens sometimes, but not all the time. Now, also, the last time the Giants played the Commanders, they had 5 sacks in that game, if not more. So they have been one of the bright spots on this defense. Now, the thing that I worry about and what I'm curious is how much is Shane Bowen going to blitz? Because when they've blitzed the front four can get there for the most part, right? And it's not just them. Jason Pinnock has sacks. Obviously, Aziz, Kayvon, and Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns all have a lot of sacks. Micah McFadden has a couple sacks under his belt. Jason Pinnock, I even think that Drew Phillips might have one. So what I like is that it's been a whole team effort when it comes to getting to the quarterback. But the problem is Jaden Daniels is not any quarterback. We saw this during the first game. The Giants' run defense against the Commanders was atrocious. And it wasn't only bad against, their running backs. It was bad against Jaden Daniels. So I don't expect a lot of blitzing this game, but I do expect to see the Giants' run defense improve. And you cannot do what the Bears did last week, okay? Everyone better have watched this tape. And Dable said that they practice every single week what to do during a Hail Mary. So let's hope for all of our sake that it does not come down to a Hail Mary. And let's also hope that if it does, that this team has actually been able to put into fruition what they have done in practice, unlike the 2-point attempt last week. So that's what I'd like to see with them. So we'll see. Jaden Daniels, I joked about this during the first game that he was like, must have been covered in butter or something because no one could tackle him. So since then, I do feel like the tackling has improved on this team, and we have Drew Phillips back, which I think is going to be huge. And, even Tyler Nubin has done a really nice job. So we got to see these rookies come out in full force. And I think that being able to contain Jaden Daniels is going to be one of the keys to this game. I heard a great stat from Bobby Skinner on Talking Giants where he was saying that, the first game that the Giants played the Commanders, they virtually did not throw the ball past 10 yards at all. And I was joking after that it was like the Giants were the practice run for the Commanders deciding to be a really good football team and like all of them to figure it out, Jaden Daniels included. Because since then, he's thrown a bit over the middle and he has thrown some deep balls. But his deep ball catch percentage is only 5% more than Daniel Jones on the amount of targets, which is insane to me because I feel like Jones has hit maybe 2, which obviously that can't be right, but it just feels like he's had a lot of attempts that have been bad. And Jaden Daniels, I feel like every time I see him throw a deep ball, it's perfection. So but I thought that was a really interesting stat. So to me, that just kind of just proves the point that even though they are throwing the ball a bit more over the middle and they're throwing the ball down the field more, it's not to the extent of maybe a team like Pittsburgh or a team like the Eagles, who of course decided that the week against the Giants, they were going to figure it out and do the same thing. So I'm curious to see if the Giants can make some stops there and prevent it. The other good news that we have this week is that we are going to have Adoree Jackson and Cordell Flott back. Now, before everyone complains about those two players, you are not going to tell me that they are worse than what we have out there. So let's keep that in mind. Last week, some of these guys have been going against really good wide receivers, and the Commanders are no different. But we are going to have better talent there. Stroman came in to take over for Banks and ultimately did relatively good job considering it was his first game and he was literally signed a couple days before. So Banks is going to be back. Dable already said he's going to be the starter, but I do really want to see more from Adoree and Flott in this game. And Flott was playing well before he got injured. So I hope that both of them, who's ever out there, they can get in a good rhythm and they can make some plays because we need to be able to do that if we want to win this game. Now, I know there's going to be people who are like, I don't care. I want them to lose. I want them to tank. That's fine. I'm going to the game on Sunday. I'm going to be rooting for a win. I'm not going to root for them to lose. The only difference is that if they will lose, I will not be depressed. So I hope we all feel the same way. So I don't really have much else here, I would say, for the Commanders. Their injury report is not out yet. But I want to go into the quarterbacks because obviously I know that where everyone's head at right now is that they just cannot wait to get a new quarterback. So I don't blame you for that. I also feel the same way. We're ready for a rookie, and it depends on, of course, where the Giants draft. But one of the websites and the people that I rely on most heavily when it comes to draft time is Dave Syvertson, and he's been a scout for many years. He's also a Giants fan, so if you follow him on Twitter, I think it's Ourland Cy. He does a really nice job of breaking down film, and this poor guy has to go back and watch Giants film and recap it, and he does a really nice job. But I mean, his eyes must be bleeding week in and week out. So I really trust the work that they do because him and his scouting team do an incredible job. So the quarterbacks that I have here, or who he has so far listed as the top 5, I will read off the top 10, but I want to give you some of the bullet points that he has listed for each of these quarterbacks, because if you haven't had time to watch college football, or you've only heard a little bit about each of these players and you haven't actually seen them, I hope that this will give you a bit more information. And if you decide, I want to watch Jalen Milroe this weekend, then these are the things you could keep your eyes peeled for. So let's go ahead and get started, because Jalen Milroe is number 1 on his list. He's the Alabama quarterback. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. So he is a 2-year starter. In 2023, he was ranked all SEC. He finished second in the country in rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. So he is that dual threat quarterback. He is going to run a lot. He's a little bit on the slighter side. If you love Jaden Daniels and you like the type of game that Jaden Daniels has, I think you're also going to like someone like Jalen Milroe because he has that similar capability. He only threw the ball 285 times and transitioned to a new offense this season, so in 2024, the same system that molded Michael Penix into a first rounder last April. Now, I'm glad that Dave has that in there because I think it's really interesting that he pointed that out, because so many of us loved Michael Penix coming out. So a similar system that is molding a player like that, love to see it. Now, Michael Penix has not played anything in the NFL yet, but I think we all agree that he is probably going to be a pretty good quarterback when he eventually gets out there. He's one of the fastest player on the team out of all of the positions. He has explosiveness with a running back caliber frame and power. So he's a bit bigger than Jaden Daniels, which I know, anyone who's watching Jaden Daniels run, I hold my breath every time he takes a hit. Like I also do with Jones because of this injury settlement, but he has a bigger caliber frame, which is, I think a little bit better than Jaden Daniels, who also is already dealing with a rib injury. He understands the nuances to angles and space when running with the ball. He has the kind of speed that's faster than the defender who's pursuing him. Literally, the Giants going against Jaden Daniels sounds very familiar. However, he does a better job than Jaden Daniels and Daniel Jones do of protecting himself from big hits. He knows how and when to get down. Ding, 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 ding. Things that we all want to see out of our quarterback. You cannot survive in the NFL if you don't know how to slide and if you don't slide correctly. Daniel Jones dealing with all these injuries. Outside of the bad O-line, he has taken some very serious hits, which you cannot do. A successful and efficient downfield thrower. This is going to be music to our ears for probably a lot of Giants fans. A developing passer with the requisite physical ability. Leadership traits are off the charts. I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. After one of the recent games where I think Alabama ended up losing, Jalen Milroe was asked afterwards. He threw a ball to his wide receiver that went off his hands and it was intercepted. And I think that's how they ended up losing the game. So anyway, he was asked about that afterwards. And, I think the reporter kind of tried to be like, were you upset with your wide receiver for not catching that? And he immediately nipped it in the bud and said, absolutely not. That was my job to throw a better ball. It should have been right in his chest, right in his hands. It's my fault that I did not throw him a catchable ball. That is the type of leadership that I want to see from especially a quarterback. That's the type of leadership that needs to be in this locker room. Love that about him. So one thing that he struggles with is as a pure pocket player, he's fast to tuck and run rather than work through progressions. I can speak, I promise. So we'll wait to see how that continues throughout the season. So if you plan on watching him this weekend, I would say keep your eyes peeled on that. See if he feels a bit more confident in the pocket or if he's doing, exactly what Dave has here and he's tucking and running. Release and ball placement are inconsistent and needs to continue on his path of cleaning his techniques up with both arm slot and footwork. I don't see anything about arm strength here, but I don't see anything, negative about it either. So things to watch if you want to watch Jalen Milroe. I think overall he is going to be one of the top quarterbacks coming out. I know there's concern that he's an Alabama quarterback, but there was also concern about Caleb Williams being a USC quarterback. Now, Caleb is only in year one, but he's looking pretty good. Let's move along to Shedeur Sanders. Quick water break for those of you who are listening. So he's Colorado, 6'1.5", 198 pounds. As we all know, he is Deion Sanders' son. 4-year starter in Dallas, began his career at Jackson State to play for his dad. Winner of the Jerry Rice Award, top FCS Freshman of the Year in 2021, transferred to Colorado in 2023 to again be coached by his dad, a pure pocket passer who has made the best of a bad situation when it comes to pass protection. Now, he has not had a great O-line. He has also blamed his O-line for their struggles. Now, that is a conversation that you keep in-house. You don't say that to the media. So I have my own concerns about Shedeur Sanders and his what I will call diva-like personality. And I know there are some fans who will say, I don't care if he comes in here and we win football games, doesn't matter. That is totally fine. I was also someone who was a little concerned about drafting Malik Neighbors over Rome Odunze because the same thing. And that's just a personal preference of mine. I am not a scout, so we will see what the Giants end up doing. Obviously, they were not afraid to draft Malik Neighbors, so we will see. If Sanders ends up being in the conversation based on when the Giants draft, then they might say, we don't care about any of this, and we'll give him media training, and we'll do XYZ to make sure that, he really is a leader and he doesn't throw people under the bus. I don't like throwing people under the bus, especially as the quarterback. Like, you're supposed to be a leader. I don't care who lost the game. Everyone needs to play better. End of discussion. If you lose the game, right? Everyone needs to improve. And I just feel like that should be the attitude that he should have, not blaming his offensive line for a loss. Anyway, smooth and repeatable over-the-top release that moves in cohesion with his lower half. Clean footwork sets him up well. He maintains his balance and control even as he navigates traffic in the pockets. Has flashed enough speed to create and make plays with his feet, has the arm talent to make every throw at a high level. If you have watched Shedeur Sanders this year, you have seen him make some incredible throws, especially when he's on the run. So something that he's very good at, and obviously I think that is going to be a very important trait coming into the NFL. Has taken more sacks than necessary. We've heard that before, by holding the ball rather than moving in the pocket or hitting a check down. Something that if he gets drafted by the Giants, obviously you think that Dable can work on. Next up, let's talk about Quinn Ewers. He is number 3 on this list. Now, I expect this list to continue to change as this season goes on. Texas, 6'2", 195 pounds. All Big 12 in 2023, spent one season at Ohio State where CJ Stroud was number 1. Then in 2022, he transferred to Texas, started 10 games, then missed 3 because of injury. changed his off-season nutrition and workout regime in 2022, changing his body and adding more athletic movement traits to his arsenal, which is very interesting. Excellent ball handler who fits in well with all of the misdirection, motion, and ball fakes within the Texas passing game. Natural born thrower who can spin it from any and all angles. Calm and confident leader of the offense, something that is going to be very important. Doesn't get rattled easily. Will stand tall amongst pressure and traffic, keeping his eyes downfield. Again, these are all things that we like to see. I think ultimately, and we'll see how obviously the rest of the season plays out, the way that I feel from what I know about some of these quarterbacks coming out, and I know people are going to be like, this isn't the same draft class as last year. They all suck, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can say that, but number one, have you watched them all play multiple games in the NFL? Number two, it's only October. By the time January rolls around, we're going to hear all sorts of different stuff about how this is one of the best quarterback drafts coming out in a long time, I'm sure. And then number three, a lot of the things that I'm reading about these players from someone who has spent time watching a hell of a lot more tape than probably any of us has makes me feel like there is a good chance that any one of these quarterbacks not only would fit in well with this system, would do well with Dable, but would be able to improve coming in as a rookie. And again, having Shea Tierney, having Dable as their coaches to really help build them up as quarterbacks. One concern of his is durability. He has a small frame and he did miss multiple games again this year with an injury. He also got benched at one point for Arch Manning, but then they put Ewers back in the game. So something I would say to keep your eyes on. He is the starter though moving forward. So we'll see if any of that happens anymore where he gets benched for Arch. Deep ball success has wavered, does not have a lot of throws where he puts it on a rope, can tend to be a gimmicky passer. Footwork is not automatic and leads to inaccurate throws. So one last concern here is that he has a small frame for the NFL. So again, things to keep in mind, things to watch for. Number 4 is Cam Ward, who I know is so many people's favorite. So let's talk about him. He's coming out of Miami, 6'2", 225 pounds, 5-year starter in West Columbia, Texas. He's currently on his 3rd program. He won Offensive Player of the Year in 2021, also All-American, transferred to Washington State in 2022, was there for 2 years, earning all Pac-12 honors twice. Then in 2024, he transferred to Miami. Since he's been at Miami, I think they are 7-0. So he's having a really incredible year this year with this Miami team. I think last year Miami was like 5-8 or something. So they made a really big turnaround. And I know for so many Giants fans, we talk about, what it would feel like to be the Commanders who, have this quarterback who comes in and turns things around. And I think Miami is a perfect example of this and honestly bears very well for Cam Ward. So okay, let's talk about him a bit more. So he's a playmaker with both his arms and legs, specializes in off-schedule plays, a dangerous threat anytime he escapes the pocket. Also sounds like Jaden Daniels there. Excellent arm strength and accuracy on the move, something also that Shedeur Sanders has, like I talked about earlier. Knows how to place the ball in a way to set up receivers after the catch. Something we have not heard about our very own Daniel Jones. Layers the ball between levels of the defense and confidence, releases sudden and explosive, has shown issues with ball protection. We've heard that before. I do think that can be improved upon. We've seen them do it with Daniel Jones when it comes to the fumbling situation. Interceptions are one thing. From what I gather from this, it's more talking about fumbles than interceptions. Poor ball security habits in traffic and puts the ball on the ground too often. Will take chances on passes he should not. Needs more situational awareness. So again, Cam Ward, University of Miami, if you get the opportunity, watch him this weekend. Like I said, I have heard nothing but amazing things about him, and our lads, I think, had a pretty good description of him overall. So I will be watching him. Now, number 5 on his list is Carson Beck. This has not been updated most recently because I saw a tweet last weekend that Dave Syvertson had Garrett Nussmeier, who is the LSU quarterback, as his number 1 coming out. So stay tuned. This is bound to change, but I wanted to just give you guys these top 5 because I think it does a really good job of giving you more details about these quarterbacks. If you've heard nothing but, oh, I know Carson Beck plays for UGA and he's supposed to be good, well, I think hearing this information gives you a bit more insight into, what to look for if you want to watch him, things like that. 6'4", 218 pounds, UGA, 2-year starter in Jacksonville, Florida. He was all SEC last year in 2023. He led the conference in passing. Big frame with a pro body, clean footwork that plays both sudden and sure, constantly in sync and within the timing of the offense. Maybe he would be able to help us prevent some of these penalties that we get week in and week out. Full cohesion between his physical mechanics and decisional making. Love to hear that. Fast to process information and knows where to go with the ball. Robotic and repetitive, very machine-like, steady hands in high-pressure situations, capable of leading the offense through fire. So again, it sounds like he's got that calm, cool, collected personality, just like Cam Ward, which is something that you're going to want. Again, in the NFL, high-stress, high-pressure situations, you need someone who can stay zen under there, you know? Will bounce back after mistakes and remain slow pulse, does not create a lot off schedule, does not have a lot of impressive, deep, explosive passes on tape, ultra quick to check down, accuracy is inconsistent, does not always set up targets for post catch yardage. So ultimately, when it comes to these guys, there are a lot of pros, and of course, there are some negatives. So again, where I am at when it comes to drafting a quarterback is, number one, it's a necessity. Number two, I do believe that Dable is a good quarterback coach, and so is Shea Tierney. That I think ultimately, if they draft one of these guys who ends up, being the top 5 in the class or whatever, that I do feel confident that they are going to be able to mold him into a very good NFL quarterback. Is he going to be elite? I don't know that. I really don't know. These guys compared to last year, and we hear all of this, oh, this quarterback class sucks compared to last year. Well, I think that we would all agree that we would take any one of these guys over our current quarterback situation out of all 3 of the ones that are on this roster. So, and then again, I think you also have to have a little bit of faith and a little bit of confidence that, there is some development that comes with quarterbacks once they hit the NFL. Now, there are some quarterbacks who unfortunately get put in bad situations and they don't have great coaching, and that doesn't happen. But I ultimately think that Dable will be able to help improve these players. So the other 5 on his list, like I said already, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, Drew Allar from Penn State, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, Cade Klubnik from Clemson, and Max Brosmer from Minnesota. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to pull up here, because PFF had grades out for college quarterbacks, and I thought it was really interesting. This is it here, right? Nope. I thought it was really interesting because the number 1 on their list was not who here it is. Okay. Highest graded quarterbacks. Number 1 is Cam Ward, who has 91.6. Shedeur Sanders is 91.1. Jackson Dart, who's the Ole Miss quarterback, is 91.1. Curtis Rourke from Indiana has a 90.5. Taylon Green is 90.2. I don't know what that looks like. The Badgers, maybe? Is that a pig? They only have a mascot. I don't know what it is. Then they have Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who is 90. Drew Allar from Penn State, who's 89.9. Tyler Show, who looks like it's a Cardinal, 89.5. Haynes King from Georgia Tech, 87.7. And then Hank Bachmeier from Wake Forest, 87.5. So this is what PFF has them ranked. Obviously, we're about halfway through the season. We will see how things change. So you guys let me know in the comments who you are watching from a college football perspective this weekend. Let me know if you'll be at the game. I will be in D3 tailgating. It's going to be a beautiful game. I understand if you're not going, if you don't want to go, if you don't want to watch, I don't blame you for 1 second, but I will be there. Like I said, I'll be rooting for a win. And if they lose, I won't be wildly depressed like I have been, because at least we'll get a quarterback out of it, right? And then we'll have something to look forward to in the future. So in the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening. Also, Sunday is the New York City Marathon. So all of the runners, good luck. Go kill it. Go crush it. You guys are going to do amazing. The New York City Marathon is such an incredible experience. I have not run it. I was supposed to, and then I got injured because I'm old. So Everyone else who's running it, best of luck. Enjoy. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful day. Enjoy your weekend, guys. I'll be back next week with a recap. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and enjoy your weekend. Let's go, Giants.